Hello, welcome to our first premiere episode of UFOlitics, Sasa City. My name is Testasticles. No, it's not. I'll blow my own name. I'm not Testasticles. He's my relative. I am Testicles. So let's try it again. Okay, take two. Hello, my name is Testicles. Yeah, okay. All right. Do it again. Cat. Another example are producers. They go ahead and play UFOlitics. And in this case, you had something happen, which of course you talked about last year, which really concerned you, when you were working with a top producer from TV, a long-time producer whose shows you have been in, and you started to see this producer play UFOlitics. And that's when you stopped cooperating with him, and you told him that you can't work with him anymore and that he wasn't allowed to use your stuff and so on. So instead of me telling the story based on what you told me and what I know and what documents I have read, why don't you take it from there and tell me how this happened and some brief summaries and so on about your history with this famous Fox producer His name is, of course, Mr. Robert Kiviat. He is probably best known for his video on Fox TV, which was about the alien autopsy. They may remember that in the 90s. And of course, you were one of the people that helped expose it as a hoax. And you told Kiviat from the beginning that this could not be real, because you are the last original Roswell researcher, unlike Kiviat. And you knew that because Roswell was not caused by a crashed UFO, it was instead Project Mogul, that there could not be any alien autopsy if there was no alien. Hello. Anyway, I've talked enough. Please tell us your story. Well, thanks for asking. I'll be happy to answer any questions about Bob Kiviat that you want to. I want to start by saying that I didn't seek Bob Kiviat out. He sought me out. And I'm honored and flattered that he did. And this is how it happened. In the 1990s, I had gone undercover in Switzerland to expose the Billy Meier UFO cult. The result was my book, Spaceships of the Pleiades, The Billy Meier Story. Today, it remains the best-selling expose of all time on the Billy Meier UFO cult. Now, having said that, Bob Kiviat contacted Bill Moore. Bill Moore is the original Roswell Incident co-author with Charles Berlitz of the original Roswell Incident book. So Bill Moore, who was a good friend of mine, and he was my publisher. Bill Moore published my first book that I wrote in high school, which exposed the Billy Meier UFO cult. I had exposed it in high school. Bill Moore published that book. Matter of public record. The sequel to that book was Spaceships of the Pleiades, the Billy Meier Story, where I went undercover in Switzerland, exposed the UFO cult, and Prometheus Books published that book. And today it remains, again, the best-selling expose of all time on the Billy Meier UFO cult. So Bill Moore tells me one day that Bob Kiviat is trying to reach me. And I said, well, who's Bob Kiviat? And Bill Moore tells me who Bob Kiviat is, because I guess they had spoken. And when I heard what was going on, that Bill Moore was in the middle between me talking to Kiviat and all that, basically Bill and I said, let me just talk to him. Let's see what this is about. So I did talk to him. And what it was is Bob Kiviat, to his credit, was doing a series, a segment, just one episode, a segment in an episode of a show called Encounters, which was on Fox TV. And this segment was about the Billy Meier UFO cult and hoax. And he had this great idea to have me debate Jim Delatoso, who at that time was kind of a consultant or advisor and involved in the Billy Meier hoax and promoting it, meaning he was saying it was real when it was not. And his photo analysis was very seriously flawed. It wasn't credible. And I am one of several people who exposed him over the years. So I debated Jim Delatoso, as the record shows, and he lost that debate. Jim Delatoso has lost every debate on the Meier case we have had. So has everybody else I've debated on the Meier case, because at the end of the day, you cannot defend with any credibility bullshit. Okay? So what happened is, I meet Bob Kiviat, and he says, we want to do this show. We'd love to have you on a debate, and so on. And so I agreed to do it. But I'm going to share now some things that happened, which I've never talked about publicly before regarding Kiviat. I'm doing it now because I talk about this in more detail, along with documentation, of course, in my upcoming autobiography, What I Think I Know. And so let me share with you some of the things that have happened between us over the years, which I think, if anything, go a long way to explain, they do explain, in my opinion, why I decided what I did concerning him, and to just stop all contact, period. That's my preference right now. So I talked to Bob Kiviat for the first time on the phone, and the first encounter I will never forget, because it was what I call 100% Bob Kiviat, meaning this is how he rolls. I don't like it. I didn't like it at the time, but I'm going to share with you what he did to me. and how he was stopped. He tells me on the phone that he's the producer of the segment and that they really don't have any money left over in the budget. And he says, so we'd like to come down, have you fly in, do the show, we'll put you up in a hotel, and give you all kinds of publicity, and you know, you'll get fame and attention, all that stuff, because you'll be on Fox in, you know, good hour slot and all that in the evening. And but we can't really pay you anything. We don't have any money left in the budget. So I didn't believe him at the time. I wasn't born yesterday. I've seen this act before, and in my opinion, although Bob needs to explain this if he wants to, it's not really important, he doesn't have to, it was an act, and his bluff was called. So I had a manager at that time named David Idison, and the reason I had David Idison as a manager is because I didn't want to spend any time dealing with agents and TV producers and shows. I'm the researcher and the investigator and the journalist. I just want to show up, do my stuff, and leave. I don't want to have to negotiate contracts and micromanage all that. It takes away time from my research and my projects and other things I could be doing. So I have a manager at this point, a wonderful man named David Idison, and he is no dummy. He's very smart, very shrewd negotiator, and he's very well connected. To show you how well connected he was, when Pink Floyd came on tour for their Momentary Lapse of Reason and Division Bell tours, I happened to mention to Dave that, wow, I can't get any Pink Floyd tickets because they're sold out in 30 seconds. And he says, oh, no problem. How many do you want? I'm like, what? I said, I'll take 10 pairs, 20 tickets. Sure enough, he delivers, like, no problem. And he didn't even charge me ridiculous amounts of money for it. Basically his cost, maybe a little more. So I gave them to my friends and staff and all that as gifts, and I saw Pink Floyd. It was the best concert ever in my life. They added a couple more at the Oakland Coliseum, and Dave delivered. He always delivered. Wonderful, fantastic guy. So back to Bob Kiviat. What happened was, Idison speaks to Kiviat, and he asks him one simple question. He says, if Kal Korff doesn't agree to appear on your show, do you have a show, yes or no? And Bob Kiviat said, no, I don't have a show if Kal Korff doesn't appear. And this is after I had told David Idison that he tells me he has no money to pay me anything, period. And Dave says, okay, you're telling me that without Kal, you don't have a show. So that'll be $1,000. And Kiviat paid it. He found the money. That was a rather interesting lesson for me, as somebody who didn't want to deal with the bullshit of Hollywood, because I can't stand it. Every time I've been down in fucking Hollywood, I don't like it. It is so fake and phony. The people are so plastic. And more than one occasion, I've gotten them out of trouble using connections of people I know, just because something always happens, and I'm just not into that. So when I'm around some people who just are Hollywood types, then I do what it takes to make sure that I don't get in some of the bullshit that they do. I'll just put it down. I go into more details in my autobiography, of course. Anyway, back to the point. So I meet Bob Kiviat, and we hit it off right away. But it's obvious to me, starting with the $1,000 thing, that there's games going on, and that he does this, and I don't like it. I never have. And we've locked horns over this in the past, to where when I see him doing it, I don't acknowledge it. I just don't do anything to validate it. And then he just has to deal with me. And again, I go into several examples in my autobiography. So let me give you a couple of highlights real quick. So I go down there, and, he's agreed to pay me. And David also says, oh, there'll also be an envelope waiting for Kal that has some cash in it. Not much, but just a little bit. So that he's got something to get when he's in the hotel, because he's going to be arriving late. And then he says, oh, by the way, he has to stay in a hotel that is 1 star higher than Jim Delatoso's hotel. Now, I was shocked to hear that, because I would never request that. He did request that I didn't stay in the hotel. He insisted that I didn't stay in the same hotel as Jim Delatoso. that was a smart thing because Jim Delatoso doesn't like me and has, tried things before. I'll just put it that way. So what happened is we're in different hotels. I don't know where Delatoso is. I don't care. I'm there to debate. I'm not worried about winning. I'm just going to tell the truth, leave, and go back to Apple and Claris where I work. So what happened is I go to the hotel. The per diem is there in the envelope. Everything was done. I debated Jim Delatoso, as the show proves, and he lost. It wasn't even close. In fact, I said at the beginning of the show, in the opening, to Delatoso and the audience, unlike Delatoso, I've been to Switzerland. I've investigated the case firsthand. Then I showed images, you can see them here, where you see the UFO model clearly in front of the tree. And in further enhancements of the earliest, clearest generation photos, which I managed to get in Switzerland while I was undercover, they don't exist today because Meyer has scrubbed those photos, so you can't buy these generations from the cult. They've whitewashed them, essentially. You could actually see the string holding up the model. You could clearly see it was in front of the tree, the UFO. So that proves it was a small model positioned in front of the tree, and you shoot into the sun. That's how Meyer faked this photo. And that's why we call it a fake ship. Then what happens is I've done these, and I tell Bob I just am not going to be involved with him anymore. Then I'm moving forward with my own stuff. And I had put my stuff on the back burner to try to help him. And it didn't work. And I disagreed with the way he was going. Because at the end of the day, Bob Kiviat was not going to use his own money to do anything. He was going to use other people's money, like whoever backed him, investor, studio, whatever. I'm not wired that way. I use my own money. And it's a lot of money to do this kind of investigation over the years. I don't wait for a gig to go do it. And while that's one way to get things done, it's not the way I do it. And so I don't like it when something doesn't come out because nobody paid the bill to get a platform to get it out. When you can do it yourself with a fucking couple of mouse clicks. Come on. So I had no patience for this. And then I finally told him, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I can't help you. And you can't use my stuff. And then, of course, it got really quiet. And then he calls me out of the blue. He's like, Kal, okay, but your stuff is so good. And we just need to tweak it a little. This music, can you do it? I said, Bob, I'm using my music for my stuff. I wrote my music for me. I wrote this in India years ago when I was working on this shit, okay? And you and I weren't in touch. And I remember later when I showed Bob one of these videos I had done in India, he says, Kal, where did you get these women? They're so hot. I said, Bob, I've been filming this for years. All over the world with all kinds of people. And it just was surprising that I don't even know what to call it. Talk about selective memory. And now people start calling me saying, hey, you should hear what he's saying, what he's claiming. And we know it was you, not him. That's why I don't deal with him. So I told him, and I had investigations tell him that from now on, I will only talk to you through investigations. Everything must be in writing. And I want the name of your lawyer. We will deal with it that way. Trust but verify. Hardcore. So what happens in episode 1 at the end is you see that there's more than one example of UFOlitics. That's where all this is getting at here. There's UFOlitics where you go render a rendition an avatar that's rogue and you expose them like Nikki Pope or Dr. Carlson. But there's another kind of UFOlitics where you have producers playing UFOlitics for whatever reason. They're either not telling the truth about UFO cases like the New York Times, okay? Or you have people like Bob Kiviat who do things like they do it, and because he didn't get a gig, data didn't come out. And that, I'm sorry, that's wrong. There are other ways to get out free. You can just give it to people. If you really want the truth out, Money's not your focus. So what happened is I decided to let it all out. And if that bothers people, I don't care. If it bothers people that I'm letting the truth out, then that's on the person, not me. If they have a problem with the truth, then that's their mental retardation. I'm sorry. I'm not going to validate anybody who has a problem or rejects the truth. Why should I? That would be insanity. They're the insane ones for rejecting the truth. The people who champion truth. That's not insanity, that is sanity. And we need a lot more of it in today's society.